Right. Welcome, everybody. We are going to get started in just a minute here. Wayne is logging on, and then we'll let him take it away.
That sounds scary. I mean,
This might be our best attended operations training, Wayne. I'm not sure how to feel about that.
you even let Christina in. Oh my gosh. Now I'm concerned. Now I'm concerned. Oh, that's awesome.
All right. Well, you're probably familiar with a bunch of our attendees today, but I'll introduce Wayne for anybody who doesn't know. Wayne is a longtime friend to Sphere Rocket, speaks at our events, helps us plan, helps us grow, helps us really do whatever we ask him to do, which is pretty awesome. He is the founder of Hero Nation, a fantastic small business and real estate coaching organization, longtime agent, team leader, kind of been around the block a few times, so to speak, and really excited to have him on today. So he's going to be sharing some business planning strategies with us. This is probably a much longer course, so I think this is going to be kind of a crash course, high level. Wayne is also a client of Sphere Rocket, uses his virtual assistants at a very high level, so he'll be able to tie in some things along the way here. So I'll hand it off. Wayne, really appreciate you being here today, man.
Yeah, I love it. I'm glad we get to do this. So thank you for having me in, my friend. And you have it's an awesome community. So I do not take it lightly. And thank you for joining me in my hotel room, as I wasn't exactly expecting this, but I'm ready to rock and roll. So let's jump into this. Here's what I realized. I am excited to give you what I've discovered about business planning. Like I said, we could spend literally all day on this, and yet I want to give you the most important nuggets and pieces of this that I believe will connect with you. What I've, like Joel, like you were saying, we've worked with so many different businesses. I've been able to coach over 6,000 entrepreneurs. And what I've realized is most of business planning is BS. Right? Like if we're going to talk like most business plans, how many of you have had like the most gorgeous business plans ever, and they lasted about 8 minutes into the next year, right? Like by January 3rd, right? We forgot what was on there. We didn't look at it again for 11 and a half months, right? Like we've all had that experience on some level. So my goal today is to make this as real as possible, and for you to get out of this some actionable things you can go put in place that actually work. So I don't want this to be like an hour of theory that sounds really cool in a college class, but we can't go and apply it on the street. I want it to be stuff that you can go apply on the street tomorrow that's going to help you in your business as we go into the rest of this year and next year. Sound good? So I would love for this to be as interactive as possible, except for Christina. She always asks me really tough questions. So we'll give her like 3 maybe and see how we do it. No, I'm really glad y'all are here, but I would love for this to be interactive. So if you can, jump on camera, if you can, give me feedback. If you got questions, let's make this not just Wayne talks at everyone, which is really boring. Let's make this everybody talks together and we get some kick-ass stuff out of this. So here's the first thing that I want to give you. So the first one is most business planning really is BS. And what I want you to start off with is considering this. Consider the fact that a great plan, you can have a phenomenal plan, yet with a poor culture, it'll almost always fail. On the other side of that, you can have a phenomenal culture, and even if your business plan sucks, you're probably going to hit some goals. Does that make sense? Well, like if you have the right people in the right culture, even with a terrible plan, you have a better chance of hitting your goals and succeeding than you are if you have a great plan, but the wrong people or nobody's actually following it. Make sense? Okay, so let me throw this out there before I get into the process that I go through. So I'm going to give you the process partially that I go through. I'll give you a process that I do with teams, and then I'll give you some of the key aspects of that. And then I'll send Joel all the documents, and he can distribute them as he sees fit. So the first thing is I want to understand from everyone on here, what do you want from this? Like, what is the point of business planning? Like, give me some thought. Like, what's the point of us doing this?
Get everybody going in the same direction.
Awesome. Yeah, get everybody going in the same direction. Amen.
Prioritizing. A lot of things we could be working on. How do we choose the ones we should be working on?
Amen. Yes.
I was just going to say prioritizing.
Yeah, love it, love it. So when we look at this, we all know some of what works and what doesn't work when it comes to business planning, correct? Like we've all heard of SMART goals, right? Like it needs to be simple, it needs to be measurable, it needs to be specific, it needs to be time. Like we all know this. So my question is, where do we get lost? Like we get lost in this whole process, though, somewhere down, right? How many of you got lost when it comes to business planning at some point? Right? Like beautiful plan, 3 months in, what the hell? I don't even know what our plan was, right? Like it gets weird really, really fast. So I want to give you some of the tools that I believe will help with that the most. So 3 things I want you to write down. So write these down first. So when it comes to business planning or developing my people in general, I want you to think of these 3 things. So the 3 things are, we have mindset, skill set, and tool set. So when I think about those 3, right? So mindset, skill set, tool set. So I'm going to go through all of those when I'm laying out my business plan, especially when I'm doing a business planning day with an organization. But we got mindset, skill set, and tool set. You can have someone with a great mindset, but if they don't have the right tools or know how to use the tools, it's going to fail, right? You can have someone who has the right tool. They might know how to use the tool. They can have the tool set, they can have the skill set, but if their mindset's not in the right place, it's going to fail. We've got to have all 3, right? The mindset, the skill set, and the tool set in order to make this work. So let me share with you a couple of things that I would do. So I have a whole business planning day that we walk through. And if any of y'all want me to come in and do this with the organization, or if you want to bring in one of the coaches, let us know. We usually do like a half day or a full day or whatever it is. But I'm just going to give you everything that has taken me 15 years to build because I love Joel. My only request is if you don't know how to use it and you use it terribly, don't say I gave it to you. Okay. So like if you go deliver it and it's terrible, just don't say it came from me. Right. And you have to give Hero Nation credit like 2 times and then you can own it. Then it's yours, right? That's the rule. So here's what I do first. So first off, when I'm getting to business planning, the first thing I do is I have a little appointment with myself. And here's things that I go through with me, and I would just challenge you to take a screenshot of this, and then I'll give you the business ones. But when I'm sitting down with myself at the beginning of every year, here's the stuff that I go through. So I review what are my principles for this year. So for me, a lot of my principles are like, I'm going all in. My principles are, create joy and love. My principles are be where I am. My principles are look under the bed, right? Like look at the monsters, right? So I go through my principles. I go through my bucket list. I usually put myself in a corner. I will rent a vacation home somewhere. I'll go to the mountains. I'll do something where I kind of sequester myself for a day and a half. And the first half of the day is just me unwinding. And then the second morning I wake up, I have a great coffee. Then I go through all this business planning stuff without internet, everything else. I just go through this by myself for a day. So I go through what are my principles, my bucket list. I look at my 20-year vision. I look at my 5-year vision. Obviously it's easier for me now because I have those written and I just tweak them, right? I'm not doing them for the first time. I ask myself, what would make this an amazing year? I go through my must sheets, which I'll show you in a second. I go through the vision for my personal life, right? My year, the vision for my business this year. I go through my 5 tabs, which I'll show you in a second. Right. I go through my calendar for this upcoming year. I go through my dream board. I put my musts in there, right? So this is what I go through with me before I ever do anything else. Does that make sense? Any questions on this? And I get this is a little rough. This is just my notes. But any questions on that before I go into what I do with the team? I just think it's really important that you get centered with yourself before you try to go get everybody else on the right page. One of the best quotes one of my coaches gave me years ago is he said, the higher your level of leadership, the more isolation or retreat time is required. I'm guessing if you're on this call, you are really good at taking time for yourself. Right? Like you are really, right? Like you're terrible at that, right? Most of us are terrible, right? Like you're like, oh, I took 2 days off and you took your kids to Disney. That's not a day off. Like I love you, not a day off. Okay. So for most of you, I want you to give you some permission to know that you get weird if you don't give yourself some isolation time. I want to give you permission that for you to be the best everyone else needs you to be, you're going to have to give yourself some isolation, some reflection, some quiet time in order for you to be that leader. It's going to feel weird in the beginning. And I'm going to tell you must do it if you take yourself or your business seriously. Okay. Any questions on this list before I move? Awesome. All right, cool. So let's go to the business plan. So I'm going to give you some of what we do. So we do a thing called Level Up, which is a lot of our business plan. People like Devin and stuff have been to that over and over. And I'll give you the overall of what we do for the day, and then I'll give you the tactics. So when we start the day off, the first thing I always do, and I'll give you this workbook so you have it. First thing that we always do is we go through our wins for the year. And I know that seems obvious, yet here's what I know. Most of us are not good at tallying up our wins. Our clients are not good at tallying up our wins. Our team members are, you've all heard about the gap and the gain. We're really good at focusing on the gap of what we haven't done, but we don't really focus on the gain. So I have them write down, what are they grateful for? What are their wins from the year? As simple as it is, like they've got to write them down. They got to share them. One of my coaches, and Joel, you worked with him as well. But Dustin had us do this thing where each person has to share for 2 minutes what they're proud of. Okay. First 45 seconds, really easy, right? Like my kids, my job, life, health, whatever, right? Really easy. The second minute and 15 seconds is tough. But I'll tell you what, the smiles and the relief that comes on their face as they start sharing all the other stuff they're proud of is huge. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give them gratitude, and I'm going to have them write down their wins. I'm going to have them write down things that they're proud of from this year and be as specific as possible. I'm going to give them several minutes to do that. Then I've got to get them to engage. So the next thing is I've got to get them to engage. I got to get them to share this with each other. I got to get us, standing up, moving around. So we're going to do gratitude. We're going to do wins. Then I got to get them engaged and have them participate. Sound good? And I've got sheets that I'll share in our planner. And I'll just give this to y'all. But in our planner, we have all these different questions we go through where they kind of rate themselves on the year. So I have them go in here. They go through, going into this next quarter or in the fourth quarter where we're at right now, where they at in diet and exercise, friends, family. So I have them. Then we start evaluating and rating themselves for where they are in the year. Okay. So that's the second piece. So as we go into that, here's one of the things that I would right. So we're gonna do gratitude, wins, all that stuff. Then we're gonna do reflection. This is where it gets weird. Reflection is where most of us can go into massive self-judgment and not really move forward really well. Agreed? So what I would request of you is either follow my process or get your own. I would challenge you to ask yourself, when I'm sitting with my team, especially, and with myself, am I doing effective reflection or haphazard reflection? Most people do haphazard reflection, which is kind of like a ball in a pinball machine, right? It's just all over the place. You're like, oh, I should have done this. It just turns into this weird should party, and you don't actually move forward very well. I would ask you to get really adopt mine or create your own. What is a really healthy reflection process? So one of the things I'm going to do, we have a whole sheet on this that I'll share with you. I just don't want to put it up there because it'd be a little chaotic if we didn't have time to go through it all. But on the reflection process, I'm going to look at like the different areas of my life. What did I do well in those areas? What do I wish I would have done more of? What do I wish I would have done less of? Right? When it comes to my relationships, what do I wish I would have done more in my relationships? What do I wish I would have done less? When it comes to spending money, what do I wish I would have done more? What do I wish I would have done less? What do I never want to do again? What do I want to keep doing? I'm doing intentional reflection on each of those 8 areas of my life, not from a place of judgment, but from a place of awareness, right? One of the things John Maxwell taught me years ago was he would pull his calendar out at the end of the year and he'd literally flip through his planner and go, what do I want to do again? What do I want to never do again? Without intentional reflection, we carry on and we just have the same year over and over and over. How many of you have had that experience? You just have the same year over and over and over. Most of it wasn't because we're broken. We didn't think about it. We just didn't do intentional reflection that led to action. Does that make sense? Okay, let me give you this. This is not in the packet, but I'll share it with you if you want to. This is one of my favorite list of questions that I'll give to you to go through. Here's 2 things to consider, especially right now. Most of you are in real estate, correct? A lot of you are probably in the real estate world. Most of you are probably leading teams or brokerages, whatever. Your agents are weird right now. Would you agree? Hey, your agents are weird. Your staff's getting hit up for opportunities all over the place. And the 2 things that I would challenge you to do is sit down with your staff and with your agents and ask, are we still in alignment? Are we still in alignment? Do we still want to do this? Are we still on the same path? What are your goals? What do you have? Like, you want to make sure that you're still in alignment with them. And then here's some great questions to ask. You don't necessarily have to ask all of these, but I would use a bunch of these. So when I sit down, some of the questions I'm going to go through, if I'm not using the rest of the packet, I'm going to ask. This is especially good with you, with your virtual assistants and with your admins. This is huge, right? What are your proudest moments of last year? What challenges did you overcome? What were your wins? What should we do again? What should we not do again? It's amazing when I ask my team what we shouldn't do again. They always surprise me with the answers, because sometimes something I thought we knocked out of the park, they're like, that was the worst thing you've ever done. What do you learn about running our business, your business? What was your favorite moment? Where did you have the most fun? I'm going to go through these questions. What are the 3 things you learned this year? What was the nicest thing someone did for you this year? These are huge. Now, let me get some of my favorite ones down here. See if we got them. Oh, let me see. I'm going to find another. Hold on just one second. I want to give you a different list that has ones for admin. I thought that would have the admins on here. Let me see if I can find the ones for admin really quick. This is probably my favorite list for the especially if you're working on the admin team. So I actually go through this list with my team almost once a quarter. I sit down with my admins and here's what we go through. I'll ask them questions like, what do you like most about your job? What do you like least? What inspires you to succeed every day? If I ask each one of you, and I'm preaching to the choir right now, like this call, I think is mostly for me. So thank you, Joel. I'll flip you off later as it convicts me going through this. I think I'm going to be the most convicted person on the call. But like when you look, especially your virtual assistants, like, do you know what inspires them? Do you know what drives them? Like, do you actually give a rip? I know you do, or you wouldn't be on this call, but are your actions clear that you give a rep? Do you know what drives you? Do you know what inspires them, right? Do you know what the most meaningful part of their job is? How happy are they? Right? What are you most excited about this year? What are you most worried about this next year? Right? What are your goals? What can I do to help you do your job better? What are obstacles I can remove for you? What isn't going well in your role, right? So we're still in the reflection phase. How many of you are already freaking out because you're going like, I don't have time for any of this? I'll tell you what, Travis, I love the smile because I feel what you're there at, right? But like we go, I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to spend an hour with each person. I get it. And what I know you don't have time for is 8 hours to find a new person. Right? Like either I'm going to find time to spend time with these people, or I'm going to spend a whole lot more time finding new people, which is way tougher. What do you wish we could improve on? What's slowing us down, or what's slowing you down from getting your work done? Is there any process we can fix? These are great reflection questions that I do with my admin team, especially once a quarter. After you do it once or twice, you can literally email them the questions and have them draft their answers, and it starts getting better and better. First time's a little brutal, and you need to walk them through it. Third time, you can probably send the questions to them, have them answer them, and then go through it. Okay, give me 1 or 2 pieces of feedback on this before we keep going. Like I said, we could probably do an hour class on each one of these tools, but I want to make sure we get it all. Okay, thoughts on these questions?
I think one thing you just said that was simple but very powerful for me is, again, do I want to spend 1 hour doing this, or do I want to spend a whole day trying to find somebody new, and really more than a day by the time you find them, then get them up to speed. So that alone is very powerful.
Yeah, I agree. It really is true that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and sometimes our phenomenal people, we just don't spend enough time with them, ask them where, or another big thing that I've noticed is we put people in a box and we assume things don't change. Right. So like what they're struggling with or their goal 6 months ago, they may have changed. They may be totally different now. Right. And especially if they're not in the office, especially like for me, I'm a big, like, if I see you, you exist. If I don't see you, it's tough for me to remember. Right. So like, I just assume that their life hasn't changed in 6 months, and it probably has. Right. Shame on me if I don't check in. It's amazing how many of my clients I talk to, and I was just they go, man, I'm really struggling with this person. I go, well, what drives them? They go, I don't know. Well, I don't know how to help. Right. I don't know. And here's a tough quote to think about. I don't know how to coach someone if I don't know what their why is. Think about that for a moment. I believe it's almost impossible. And that's a little radical, but I believe it's almost impossible to coach someone if I don't know what their why is. How many of us are trying to motivate, coach, and lead without understanding the why of our staff, our clients, whatever it is? Make sense? Okay, so here's what we've got. If you're taking notes, we're going to start our day with gratitude. We're going to go into, we got to engage them. What's their wins? We got to get them to share with us what they're proud of. Then we're going to nail reflection, right? Reflection is all these questions. What could I have done better? You know, what do I want to do this next year, right? We're going to go through reflection. After reflection, I got to shift their energy, right? So after reflection, I'm getting them up. We're moving around. Usually if it's physical, even if it's not physical or we're on Zoom, I'm going to get them to move up. We'll do a weird dance, whatever it is. Then I'm going to inspire the hell out of them. Right. So before I get into goal setting, I'm getting my first dose of inspiration. So my first dose of inspiration, if I'm teaching a class, is usually a story of someone. I'll usually ask them a question along the lines of, you know, have you ever seen someone radically change their life in 6 months or radically change their life in a year? And then I'll share a story of, you know, either the first guy that ran the 4-minute mile or, somebody that broke the speed of sound, whatever it is. I'm going to share some sort of story of someone they can relate with or they've heard of that radically changed their life in 6 months a year, right? I got to get inspiration back up. I got to get them dreaming a little bit more before we go into actual goal setting, right? So whatever that story is for you, I've got to get them tuned back in and I got to get their energy high so we can go into goal setting. Make sense? Okay. I might ask them, if I'm going to tell the 4-minute mile story, I might ask them, what would your 4-minute mile be for this year? What would be a hell yes for this year? And I will ask them, how many people have had a not hell yeah year? How many people have had a year that was similar to last year? And I'll push them on, are you okay with that? What's the story you want your kids to read by the end of this next year? What would make it a hell yeah? What would actually make it a hell yeah? So I'm going to push them. I'm going to inspire. I'm going to get their energy way back up. Then we're going to dive into the goal setting piece. Okay. Any questions before I go into the goal setting piece and how I lay that out? Okay, Joel, anything you want to add before I go into that?
Oh, this is awesome. Just this applies to almost everything, but you'll get out of this process what you put into it, and that has to be time and focus. It's just I don't think there's shortcuts. There's processes, right? There's principles, but I don't think there's shortcuts.
Yeah, I agree. As painful as it is, right? If you half-ass this, it's just going to end up taking you twice as long, which I have to remind myself all the time to slow down and do it the right way. Okay, so here's the workbook I'm going to send you all. If you want this, as soon as you renew your subscription with Sphere Rocket, I think Joel sends this out. I think that it's just like an right, something along those lines. Yeah. All right. So here's what we do. So this is part of the packet that I'll share with you. But I explained to them, our goals, right? We have this graphic. So with our organization, we have a someday, right? We have a mission, we have a vision, but then we're going to dive into what are our year-long objectives, like what direction we're going to. I don't so much love the term year goals because so much changes over the year. I like to almost talk about our years like our direction. Here's where we're headed, but life can happen, stuff can change, right? So we got our year direction, we got 90-day targets, then we start getting into our 30-day goals. Yeah, my goal through the process I'm going to send you, and this one works really well. So pay attention because what I'm going to give you in the next couple minutes is literally taking a decade to figure out. And it's the process that actually works the best from everything I've been exposed to, because I've got to make this 1-year goal real. We've all had that experience where we have a 1-year goal, and then we look up at the end of October or the middle of November and go like, what the hell happened? Right? Like, why didn't I hit that goal? Right? Or we got to even go dig up to figure out what the goal was. We've got to take this 1 year and we've got to make it matter. Would you agree that a lot of your people, the days don't matter all that much? Right? It's like, oh, I had a bad day, as if that it didn't count, right? So we got to boil this all the way down to the day. So here's how we do this. And some of you seen a process like this, but first thing I do in the workbook is I'll have our clients do a mind dump of all these different goals. So I'll have them go in here and I'll show you in the actual workbook that I'll share with you. I'll have them go in here and they're going to basically do a mind dump in all these different areas. And I'll say, I want you to imagine that Santa Claus just walked in and you can have whatever you ask for. But you're only going to get stuff that you ask for. So if you don't write it down, there's no chance of it happening, right? You can get whatever you ask for. You can only get what you ask for. And I'll have them take 2 to 3 minutes per section and fill it in. So I'll go, all right, you got 2 minutes to fill in personal achievements you'd want to accomplish in the next year. And personal achievements would be things like, I want to learn a language, or I want to write a book, or I want to get better at yoga, whatever it is, right? Like, what are all the different personal achievements that they want to have? And here's what I believe is interesting as we go through this. There's 8 different categories. Most of our people have stopped dreaming. Like, it's amazing how many people go, I want this to be a hell yeah year. I want this to be the best year of my life. Man, I'm desperate for a win. I want this to be incredible. And then you go, awesome. What would it take for it to be incredible? And like, they have no answers, or their answers are so boring, it makes you want to cry. Right. And it's because most people have stopped dreaming. They've stopped seeing themselves as a badass. They've written down goals so many times and not accomplished them. It's not that they don't believe in you, it's that they don't believe in themselves. Right? Like, how many of y'all have sold a product and people never even opened the thing, right? Or people didn't buy the product because they believed the product, they just didn't believe in themselves. Here's what I need to realize: you've got a big part of this. Let me say this: in goal setting, your biggest job here is to sell them on them. Your biggest job is to say, I see the badass that you are, and yet I see you showing up as a 5, and I really see you as a 10. All right, your biggest goal here is to hold up a mirror and help them see the greatness you see in them, and then we're going to give them the tools to tap into that, and that is the empowerment that's going to allow them to go hit these goals. Right? You can have the best goal session ever, and yet if they don't believe in them, nothing's going to happen. Are you with me? So this is the melding, the melting together of that mindset, tool set, and skill set. But part of this is you got to get them to dream again. Okay, so I'm going to go through each of these sections. I'm going to force them to write. I'm going to give them some prompts. What are your financial goals? Maybe you have a goal of making X amount of money. Maybe you have a goal of being able to give away $10,000 a month and it have no negative effect on your family. Right? You just give it away without even thinking about it. Right? What are some of the material possessions you want to have? Maybe you want a lake house. Maybe you want a house that people can go if they just need a retreat. What are some of your spiritual or well-being goals? Maybe you want to be able to deal with stress better. Maybe you want to be able to yoga, meditate, whatever it is, right? What are some of those things? Maybe you want to be a better dad. What are those goals? I'm going to go through physical health. I'm going to have them write down at least a bunch of things to each one of these, right? 2 to 3 minutes per category while I'm giving them prompts. What are your business goals? What are some of the ways you want to give back and contribute? What are some of the relationship goals with your spouse, your kids, your parents, whatever, right? I'm going to have them brain dump in all these categories. Some of them will nail material possessions. Some people won't be able to write down one. Right? There's no right or wrong. It's just you getting the wheels turning for them and helping them get this done. Okay. So I'm do all that mind dump. Then after we do that, I'm going to have them go back. Because here's what a lot of us have struggled with. How many of you have done something like this? You got 10 things per category. All of a sudden you got 90 goals. Right? We went from 0 goals last Tuesday to now I have 90 goals. And we wake up 6 months from now and nothing happened. Right? It's like, that was kind of a big jump. Like, I love you. I see you as a 10, but 90 is a bit, right? So what I'm going to have to do is go back through here and we're going to go through each category and I'm going to have them circle or highlight the 1 or 2, you hopefully just 1 that's the most important. Which in each one of these categories, if you did that 1, it would lead to everything else. It would be the most impactful, right? In material possessions, which is the 1. If you go through, physical health, what's the 1 thing that if you did that, it would help with everything else, right? In relationships, what's the 1 that, man, if I really just knock this relationship out of the park, it would probably help with all the others. What's the 1 most important thing in each category that I'm going to then nail down? Okay, questions so far? This is like a 4-1-1 and a 12-week year and all the other crap like put into one, which we're going to rock out on this next page. Okay, no questions. Poor Ryan Berry has seen me walk through this like in person like 18 times. So like give Ryan some love. By the way, he brags on his VA all the time. So thank you, Joel, for changing Ryan's life with the VA, by the way. You guys have probably never even met, but it's freaking awesome to see those connections. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to get 1 per category. Now that's nice. We are already further than most people ever get with goal planning. We can literally stop right now. And most of your people have done more than they've ever done in goal setting and planning ever. But we're not settlers. We're just going to kick it up. So here we go. We're going to take next level. So next level is I'm going to take that top 1. So let's say financial goals, right? I went to financial. I picked my top 1. Now I got to break it down and make it real. Okay. So this is an example. So let's say, you say, I want to save $50,000. And we've all had the experience where we write down some number, right? And nothing happens. So I'm going to break this down into bite-sized tangible chunks that I can actually put in my calendar. So step one is I have a digital version of this online that if you want it, I get access to. And it's nice because you can update and track it throughout the year. But the paper version is so much better to do for the first time. So that's why I'm going through it this way. But so let's say I had a goal of saving $50,000, right? What would prove to me that I had a great year? Man, if I saved $50,000, that would prove I had an awesome financial year. Awesome. Now we're going to break it down to 90 days. So 50,000 is the goal. What needs to happen in the next 90 days? What needs to happen each quarter, right? I need to save $12,500. Awesome. Step three. Now, what do I got to do to make that happen? And I could brainstorm some ideas, but if I'm going to say this, I got to put $12,000, $12,500 in a separate savings account. Right? That's what needs to happen. That's the task. Now I'm going to break it down one step further. What do I need to do? And I want to break it down so small that I can literally make it a to-do in my calendar. So it's not just random off the wall, like save some money thing. I'm going to make it doable, right? So I'm going to say, going to go down here and go, I'm going to put $962 in savings each Friday, right? What am I going to do? When am I going to do it? Each Friday, I will transfer $962 into my savings account. We went from this nice lofty maybe goal to every Friday at 2 o'clock, I'm going to transfer money, or I'm going to put it on auto transfer, whatever it is. Now, here's what you'll notice. You may get through this and somebody goes, well, I don't think I have an extra $1,000 a week. Awesome. Like, that's fine. Let's just change the goal. Let's not live in hallucination for the next 11 months and then beat ourselves up for not hitting the goal. Maybe for the first month, I'm going to put $300 in my account, $200. I'm going to start with $50. Maybe every quarter I'm going to double or triple it, whatever it is. But this makes it real. It goes to this obscure, random, like, I like to save some money, to if I can't put $962 in my savings account every Friday, I need to do some adjustment to make this real. Okay, give me one or two thoughts on this. Don't let the simplicity of this cause it to not impact you. Andrew, Greg, Joel, Ryan, anybody else? Any thoughts on this before I move on?
You might get to this later, but what would be advice for you miss a week, you get off track? Like, how do you catch it quickly? How do you get yourself back on track quickly?
Yeah. Yep. Amen. So the nice thing about this too is when I boiled these down, and I would do this for each category, right? I'm going to boil down for my well-being. I'm going to boil down for my health. Health might be, I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay. What do I need to do? I need to meal prep every Sunday. Like, that might be the thing, right? So I'm going to boil it all the way down. But then there's this sheet down here that's like, what's my must? Right. So now instead of having 90 random goals or 80 random goals, I've got one clear must per category. So like you're saying, Joel, so if I sit down with my person and I'm trying to do a coaching call, trying to review 80 goals, like that's a 6-hour coaching call. But I can go, hey, are you transferring the $962? And they go, shoot, I missed 2 weeks. Awesome. What do we need to do to get back on pace? Right. I didn't do the meal prep. Awesome. What do we need to do back on pace? Right. You boil it down to a place where it's manageable. You can have scoreboards built out. We can get really, really fancy, but at least you have a one page that has enough of this built down that I can do a quick check-in and know where I'm at, know where they're at.
Wayne, do you have that one sheet where you rate 1 to 10?
Yeah. Yep. Right. Yeah. Up here. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, this helps me kind of figure out is that what you're saying, Ryan? Like, figure out where catch stuff before it gets too far. Yeah. 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 And on top of that, Joel, down here somewhere, I don't use this all the time, but I use it, especially as people evolve. We'll begin to use maybe habit trackers. So they use a digital app. Sometimes also have them do paper. A lot of times I'll print off a bunch of these and they'll start on paper tracking this. Here's the stuff I want to do daily. Here's the stuff that I want to do weekly. Here's stuff that I want to do monthly. Like, this is an oversimplified, but it works. And I'm a big fan of whatever works. What doesn't work is putting it in a drawer and never looking at it. Yeah. So I'll get back down. So here's what I'm gonna do. So let's switch into business planning, right? So I've done this for each of the categories. I've boiled each of the categories down. So instead of having 80 goals, I've got 8 hell yes activities. Okay. Then I'm going to go into, and by the way, those 8 hell yes activities, my intention is that I put them into the calendar, by the way, right? Friday at 2 o'clock, transfer the money, right? Sunday at 3, do my meal prep for the week. And it's different for everybody, but this helps me at least having, I call this, by the end of my goal planning, I want to have an ideal average perfect week. And the reason I say average, which is the word, like we would all love to flip off that word because nobody on this call wants to be called average. But the reason I call it average is I believe I need to have my ideal average week, meaning real week, like not the best week ever. That's almost impossible to execute. I need to have an ideal week that's actually kind of executable and makes sense. Right. And this kind of becomes my budget. I can compare it to my actual of like what's really going on, what really happened. Okay. So then let's get into business planning. So then I'm going to go back into my business. And I can spend as much or as little time on this as you want me to. This is mostly if I'm working with an agent, right? I'm going, okay, what's your goal for the year? So let's say that Joe says, I want to do 100 transactions. Awesome. I'm going to boil that down to what are the 3 ways we're hitting those 100 transactions? Most agents do 100, right, 2-foot wells instead of 300-foot wells. Agreed? Right. So my goal here is to have them identify what are the 2 or 3 big sources for their business and nail those. Then we might have 100 others that bring in 1 or 2 deals. But what are my 2 or 3 big sources? Does that make sense? Do you want me to go through this, Joel? Is that okay? Does everybody want this for agents? I know we're talking about business in general. Does this help? And you
Yeah,
can apply
definitely.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to go, all right, so your revenue goal is X amount, which means 100 transactions. I usually talk transactions because it makes it easy. So they go 100 transactions. Go, awesome. Where are we getting those transactions? And they go, my sphere of influence. I'm going to do some online lead generation and I'm going to do events. Awesome. How many do we want from my sphere of influence? Like, does this equal up and add 100 or am I hallucinating? Right. So this has got to add up to 100 transactions. Cool. Then we're going to break it down. Right. We got to break down. Here's where it gets really interesting. So let's say that they want to do 40 transactions of the 100 from their database. Sounds nice. Here's what I find doesn't work. And all of my friends at KW, you guys can flip me off. What I find doesn't work is saying, go lead generate for 4 hours a day. Okay. Yes, go lead generate for 4 hours a day, 3 hours a day, whatever it is. But if it's just like this obscure lead generator for 4 hours a day thing, that's really hard on the head if you've actually been in the seat lead generating, right? Like lead generating, just for the sake of lead generating, can mess with your brain. What I find is I've got to make the numbers real. If I lead generate for this much time, if I make this many calls, it equals blank. Like lead generating, just for the sake of lead generating, messes my head up. Does anybody else get where I'm going with this? Like I got to make it more real for that, or I'm going to burn out or get frustrated, right? Like what I used to know is if I knocked on 75 houses, I would get 1 transaction over time. So some days it was 0, some days it was 3, but I knew, but if I did 75 door knocks, I would get a transaction over time if I kept consistent at it. That was beautiful for me because I go, how many transactions do I want to do? Want to do 4 transactions a month? Awesome. Go knock 300 doors, right? It was nice because I knew what that math was. So here's what I've got to dive into. This is where you'll have to help your agents. Let's say they want to do 40 from their database. Awesome, right? That means, right, step 2, I've got to get 10 transactions closed from my database in the first quarter, within 90 days. Simple enough. Now we're going to get complicated. Right. So what needs to happen? I need to get 10 transactions from my database. What could I do? I could call them. I could email them. I could do events. I could do mailers. I could. There's probably 15 coulds. And if I'm on a coaching call, what I hear is should. And I hear like 48 shoulds. And I'm going, I love you. We're about to have a really shouldy year. Right, because you just got all these shoulds all over the place, and we're not going to get anywhere. So yes, you might do 10 things, but my job as your coach is to get really, really clear on the one we need to nail. If we do more than that, awesome. But what's the 1 or 2 we must nail? That by doing that, almost everything else gets taken care of. This is where you got to do a little bit of math, get the calculators out, whatever it is. Right. So what we did here was they go, man, the most important thing, the thing that leads to biggest results is calling my database. Awesome. So to get to 10 transactions, I got to call, it's 100 people for every transaction based on this math, right? I got to make 1,000 calls to my database to get 10 closed pieces of business. Most of your numbers are much better than that, by the way. Most of you are like 20 calls to your database, right? Most of you are afraid to pick up the phone because it's like 2 calls to business, right? Like I love y'all, but you're actually, most of you are on this call are afraid to get business, right? So but for agents, maybe it's 30 calls, maybe it's 40 calls, whatever it is. Now I got to make that real, right? So I got to take that 100 calls and go, cool, if we got to make 1,000 calls to your database this quarter, that sounds like a lot. Let's see if we can do it. Let's break it down. And if we broke it down to, all right, what it actually means is I got to make 83 calls to my database each week. If I make 83 calls to my database each week, it means I'm going to call the 1,000 people over the 90 days, which means I'm going to get the 10 pieces of business put together, which means I'm going to be on track to hit my 1 year goals. All right, we got to do some of this math because what I love is when the light, and if I'm doing this live with somebody, right, I see the light in their eyes go off, right? When we go from like, I want to do 40 transactions on my database and they're freaking out, right? How do most agents wake up January 1st, by the way? Right? They wake up January 1st freaking out. They go, I don't really know how I did it last year, and I sure as hell don't know how I'm going to do it this year, right? Right. But what you see the light go off in their eyes when you go, bro, what this means is if you do 11 calls a day or 10 calls a day or 8 or 15, whatever that number ends up being, and they go down to their schedule and they go, man, I make 15 calls every day, 5 days a week at 9 o'clock. I make 15 calls each day. I'm on track to make my 1,000, which means I'm going to lead to the 10 this quarter, which means I'm going to lead to the 40 for the year. I don't have to freak out every Monday. All I got to do in this category is nail the 15 calls. It is such a freeing, beautiful experience. And it allows you to, quite frankly, coach so much better because I don't got to freak out about the 40 all the time. I just got to go, are we making the 10? Are we making the 15? I'm going to take that. I'm going to put it into their ideal average weekly schedule, right? And if it's 3 days, once a day, right, whatever it is, I'm going to put it in there. Give me some thoughts on breaking this all the way down.
And I just think about how powerful it is if you spend a 2-day doing all this planning, imagine like you just said, the mental freedom that comes from having the plan. And if you save yourself 1 hour of stressing every week, you more than made up for the time investment here.
It is absolutely, it's so beautiful. Yep. I totally agree. Yep. It really, really is. And your job, if you want to write this down, your job is to give them, whoever you're working with, you want to give them courage and confidence. And you do that through clarity. Clarity is like the greatest gift you can give yourself or your organization, right? You want to give them courage and confidence. You do that by helping them gain clarity. 15 a day, transfer $962 on Friday, right? Whatever that is, that empowers them at such a high level because right, they've got the tool set, they've got the skill set, and it leads to helping improve their mindset. Make sense? Okay, let me give you some more piece on this. So we're going to go through. So if I'm doing this live with somebody, right, or if I'm doing with a team or organization, whatever it is, we're going through each one of those sources. I want to make sure they got each one of those noted down. It's 2 or it's 3. So in this case, it's database. Then maybe it's internet leads. Then it's open houses, events, whatever it is. If I'm doing this with a leader, we're doing the same kind of thing, right? Where's your business to come from? I got to coach my agents. I've got to take care of my top vendors. I got to whatever, right? This applies. We could use this in 100 different ways. Okay. Then I'm going to boil all those down. So I have this schedule that matches all of my stuff. Right. Drilling all the way down to the activities. Okay. All right. Any questions on that before I move to pivoting back? So we've gone through gratitude. We've gone through big why. We've gone through what they're proud of. We've had them reflect. We inspire the hell out of them. We got what their big goals are. We figured out what some of the big key goals are within the mind dump. Then we drilled it all the way down to what their action items are and be able to put that in their schedule. Okay. Now we've got to transition, and we got 2 more things that I hope I can get through. So 2 more things. So after I go through this, now we've got a mindset again. Okay. Now they're probably a little overwhelmed. Maybe they're in a little bit of fear. They're a little curious. I've got to go back to mindset and inspire the hell out of them. So what I do if I'm doing this live is I go through 5 big decisions they need to make to have the best year of their life. I talk to them about being resourceful. I talk to them about, you didn't come this far to just come this far. We go through several things that allow them to get their head back in the right place. So and if you want to listen to that, if you want me to do that with your team or the coaches do with your team, let me know. It's too much to just kind of lay out in 2 seconds, but we go back through the mindset piece and getting them back in, getting them to make some of those decisions, knowing that they have what it takes to nail this next year. Okay. After we do the mindset piece again, then I'm going to have them write 2 letters. And you probably have all seen this before. But let me give you the level at which I do it. So I'll have them sit down and I'll say, I want you to write a letter about, if you accomplish those goals. So go back and look at the top one in each category. What is it going to feel like for you to accomplish those goals? And I have them write a 1 year from now letter. So they sit down, they write a letter that says, 1 year from now, man, it feels amazing. I'm sitting on the beach watching my kids play in the sand because this is an important piece, because what are the 2 or 3 most critical actions? Because I leaned into coaching, because I followed my schedule, because I effectively reflected and tweaked, because I did the stuff that I was afraid of, whatever those are, because I did this, this, and this. My kids are playing in the sand. We bought the vacation home. I got $50,000 in the bank, right? And I'm going to give them 2 or 3 minutes to really write and paint a picture of how they feel, what it looks like, what they accomplished, right? A year from now. It might sound a little weird, yet here's what I would say. If you're having issues with this, let me say one thing on this. What I believe is if we're not intentionally envisioning a powerful, great future, most people are unintentionally envisioning a negative future. So sometimes people get weird about being intentional about writing out a positive future, but if they don't get intentional about a positive future, most people are unconsciously laying out a unpowerful or unexciting or crappy future. Right? The thing about what they're afraid of, right? All that, right? So that's the first letter I have them write, right? That letter's awesome. They usually share, a couple people share letters like, yay, we did all the stuff. Awesome. Now here's where I get a little weird. So Joel knows this because he's been around me long enough. Ryan really knows this because Ryan's known me for over a decade. Sorry, Ryan. But now I get weird, right? I want to really get them. Okay. I know that if we don't shed some tears, it didn't really hit. Okay. So now I'm going to have them write the second letter. And here's how I will preface this. I'll say, what are the 3 things you said you were going to do? Follow my schedule, right? Make my calls, right? Awesome, cool. Is there any universe where we cannot do that? And I'm not saying it's going to, but is it possible that we would drop the ball? Maybe not follow schedule, maybe not do some stuff, right? Maybe let fear hold us back. They go, yeah, I guess it's possible. Go, cool. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to write an apology letter. Second letter I have them write is they have to write a apology letter to someone that was positively impacted by the first letter. So it's usually a kid, it's usually a spouse, sometimes it's to themselves, sometimes it's to an organization. And they sit down and they go, because I didn't, that's an important part. Here it is 1 year from today, because I didn't follow my schedule, because I didn't hire a coach, because I didn't, hire the virtual assistants I need to, because I didn't lead well, right? Because I didn't blank, here's what we weren't able to do. And they write an apology letter to themselves, to their kids, their spouse, about we weren't able to go to the beach. We aren't sitting in the sand right now. We weren't able to help the community in the way that we wanted to. We weren't able to help mom retire, whatever it is. And I give them several minutes to really go there and write the apology letter. The reason I do that is because most people are driven more by pain than they are pleasure. Most people are more driven by what they want to avoid than by what they want to gain. And high achievers time travel really well. They go into the future and they go, I'm not going to make decisions based on today. I'm going to make decisions based on, what's the impact a year from now. So if I can get them to time travel a year from now, make that picture really, really clear, then they come back to the present, then we can do something about it. You can't do that letter with everybody. You have to have high rapport. You got to have engagement. You got to make sure you're in the right state. But that apology letter can be really, really powerful. Then a lot of times I'll have them put both those letters in envelopes, date them a year from today, positive, negative, and put them up in front of their desk, whatever it is, as a reminder, like there ain't no way I'm reading that negative letter a year from now. Right? When I'm sitting down to make my 10 phone calls, say like, there ain't no way I'm letting this fear hold me back from having to experience that letter. Like we're doing this, right? So I find that can be really, really helpful. So after we go through that, I'll have them write the letters. Then we're going to, talk about some, time management, calendaring. We're going to go through some of the other sheets in there that I have. I'll hit this really quick. I'll have them go through. We'll talk about, could, should, must list. I'll have them maybe plan out some of the big things, the highlights they want to do throughout the year. What are some ways they want to grow? And then we'll go into some of the morning routines. This is just all stuff that's included in the packet, right? So morning routines, night routines, all the other stuff that we have. And there's some reading lists, there's some questions you can ask yourself. I don't want to spend too much time on everything else, so we want to open up to questions. This is how we challenge our people to do every day, right? Come up with what is their like their checklist, my morning routines, my evening routines, and then this is something we have to do every single day. Write down what they're grateful for, remind themselves what their top 9 day goals are every day. Write down their musts, top 2 or 3 musts every day, and then the lessons they've learned, wins and gratitude at the end of the day. It's a question to ask your team. So before I go any further, questions, thoughts, ahas on what we've gone through just in the business planning day realm. What do you got? Would you like? What do you have questions about? Andrew's playing Sudoku. No?
Well, feel free to jump in, anybody. I'll share a couple things. Something that's been really helpful for me when I'm looking at the 10 goals in one area or 9 goals in one area and trying to get it down to the one. This might not work in every area, but I try to think about a keystone or a cornerstone goal. If I get that one thing, all the other things in that category are more likely. So for me, I know that if I work out, I'm much more likely to eat well that day. I'm much more likely to drink a gallon of water like I try to do every day. I'm much more likely to skip the cocktails at night. So like the workout for me is the one thing I have to focus on, because it almost guarantees that I'll hit everything else, because I feel like I don't want to waste my workout.
Yeah.
A lot of agents, that's morning prospecting. If you hit your morning prospecting, you have a big win for the day. It's much more likely that you're going to be focused all day. It's much less likely that you're going to, get distracted and take an early happy hour or whatever that is. So,
Yes.
It might not fit in every category, but if you can find the keystone, that cornerstone goal and focus on that one, it makes everything else easier in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And I think that's the goal of things is break it down to the manageable, to the real, and giving you something that's actually actionable, that's real. Because so much of our goal planning oftentimes is not real. It's not actual. It's a lot of theory, but I can't actually put it into place and make an impact. Yep. Okay, let me give you 2 other things that I would throw out there. So the next thing that I would throw out there is we then have and I'll share this. Maybe we do a separate call on this someday down the road, Joel, if you need a pinch hitter every once in a while.
Yeah.
We then lay out our management plan. Right? What's our management? Like we're not going to do what Wayne did most of his life, which is like pick up his goals again in November and be like, what the hell happened? Right? Like now I'm going to build out a management plan for myself and for my team. And we have a whole process we can do this, but I go, okay, what are we doing? Yearly, we're doing exactly what we just went through. We're doing our events, we're doing our Epic Life Planner. What are we doing quarterly as far as reviewing? Monthly, what do we need to do? Weekly, I'm going to meet with each team member. We're doing our coaching appointment. We're doing our CEO appointment. And then what are some of the things we're doing daily? So this is different for everyone, but each, especially my clients, we have them build out what is their momentum blueprint, so that we haven't just left the year goals to basically hope to survive on their own, right? What am I doing annually, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily? And it's different for everybody and it changes, but it's really nice to have that laid out. So we got to figure out what's my management, plan, maintenance plan in a sense to get this all dialed in. Okay. So I will send out this planner. If you have questions on it, let me know. One of the things that we're doing, and if it's okay with Joel to share, is we're doing kind of a ramp up write-off thing where I'm doing like 6 calls with a client, and then doing like a couple hour business planning with their team. So if you're interested in that, I think I've got like 3 more spots for that, because it's coming up on us fast. But if you want to do something like that over the next couple weeks, send me a message right now or just drop it in the chat, and I'll send you the details on that. I don't want to do a full pitch, but if you want to do some time and you want some help kind of doing that, let me know, and I'll see if we can find a time to do it with you, do it with your team, and walk them through it all. And then this is, if we do that, this is the online version, which I think is just helpful to see, kind of pulls it all together, what I'm doing in my mind. But this is the online version of this process. And some of my clients use it, some of them don't, right? But what's nice is it boils it all into one place. So what's nice is this, as a coach or as the leader, we take each one of these funnels, we take the personal achievements, we boil it all the way down, just like that sheet I showed you. And then we basically put it in the schedule, right? So like finances, transfer money into bank account. We go here, okay, Friday at 2 o'clock, we're going to transfer money. spiritual life. Okay, I'm going to put that in my calendar, right? So it boils it all the way down. And then we go through a bunch of different other really cool boxes. And it's nice for you as a leader to kind of have everything in one place. There, your vision, the impact, the 20-year plan. So all this is kind of what we do and put together. So I just wanted you to see it.
All right, we got a couple minutes left. Last chance for questions.
Hi,
Yeah.
Wayne.
Yeah. Hey.
Hey, hello from Kentucky.
Hi.
I'm sorry I had to take a call. I've got $1 million client that was calling me, so I was like, I gotta take it. But I missed kind of the very tail end of that, and I'm interested. You had said that these materials were going to be put someplace or dropped in something, but I didn't see anything come through in the chat. Is there a place that we can find this workbook or that list of questions or any of that stuff?
Yeah, so I'll share this with I'll chat with Joel about how he wants to share it out. So yeah, we'll definitely share it out there so that you can you can have it. Yep.
Thank
Okay,
you.
let me give you a couple things on this really quick before we wrap out. Two things I want you to think about is what is, you know, as you're thinking of this, what is your goal for goal planning? And I know that's kind of weird, but get very clear on what your goal is for goal planning. I think our goal is to re-inspire. Our goal is to give them, you know, mindset, tool set, skill set, and the courage and confidence, right, to go do what they need. And we give them to that through clarity. A couple things to think about as you do this. One, this next several months, I'll put my coach hat on for a second. These next several months are not going to be the easiest. Like, this is not going to be the easiest time for any of us, right? Any of your clients, any of your team. Yet the reality is, like, there's no other better option. Like, yeah, go get some additional streams of income, go do other things. Like I was telling you all the other day, like, I figured out how to be my own travel agent and get paid when I book my own cars and hotels, all that kind of stuff. Right? It's a nice little extra stream of income. But for most of you, like, you don't need to go find a new gig. For most of your agents, they don't need to go find a new gig. They need to nail where they are, but it's not going to be easy. So they got to figure out, how do I make it a great experience? And the reality is, they didn't come this far to just come this far. What's going to mess them up big time is staying in confusion. What's going to mess them up big time is not getting clear. What's going to mess them up big time is resisting the reality of, last year it was 10 calls to a deal. Now it's 100 calls to a deal, whatever it is, right? Resistance, blaming is going to really mess them up. So your job with them is to help them realize that time is really valuable, help them to lean into the reality of the situation, and get them clear that there's not an easier, better place for them to go. They better nail it where they are. And the reality is, some of your agents are going to come to you, your team members are also going to go like, I feel guilty. I didn't hit my goals last year. I feel guilty that I didn't get as much done as I wanted to. Here's what I want to leave you with. They should feel guilty. They should feel guilty if they knew what to do and didn't even take some micro actions. They should feel guilty if they put more energy into excuses than they did finding solutions. They should feel guilty if they put more effort into justifying than they did figuring out, right? They should feel guilty if they thought about getting better but didn't do anything. They should feel guilty if they waited for you to show up and save them. They should feel guilty if they were relying on willpower or memory or all those other things, right? They should feel guilty if they beat themselves up just for the sake of beating themselves up. And I get that that's harsh, but your reality is to go, you should feel guilty if you didn't take some actions. You shouldn't feel guilty. You should not feel guilty if you take the time to reflect. You should not feel guilty if you give yourself some grace and then you recommit. You should not feel guilty if you are in the practice phase, but you're making effort every single day. You shouldn't feel guilty if you're doing the hard stuff and you're not as far as you want to be, but you're a little bit better than you were, and you're continuing to work to the epic version of yourself that you can. You should feel guilty if you weren't clear on what you need to do and how you need to do it. You should not feel guilty if you got clear and you start taking micro steps to being the person you ultimately want to be. Make sense? Clarity, intentional reflection, massive action.
And awesome, Wayne. Thanks again so much for being here.
Thank you.
Like he said, we'll coordinate and make sure everybody gets access. We'll try to get this recording posted soon, and then we'll get some of these materials sent out to everybody. So appreciate everybody logging on. Just a reminder, we do not have a noon central call happening right now. We got Wayne on for this instead of our Finish Strong Friday series. So this is it for today. Hope everybody has a great weekend. As always, Joel at Sphere Rocket, if you'd like to connect, and we'll get everything sent out as soon as we can. Appreciate everybody, and thank you, Wayne.
Okay, thank you all for being on here. Glad to be part of the community. Bye, y'all.
Bye.